Hello and welcome back to my channel, and we rejoin our characters in the Wormtails bar, um, the uh, the thriving hub of the Dragon Hotel. It's mid-evening. It's a very pleasant atmosphere. There's growing background noise. It's getting slightly busier now. We had an interesting encounter last episode with a politician. His name was Wagner Castellon. He was he had a very forward approach. He was quite unorthodox, I suppose you would say, in his methods, but very effective in getting through to our characters. I suppose as part of his overall persona, he was very charming, charismatic, and he had the ability to make an instant connection. And that's really what happened to our characters. We were quite, no, maybe not bowled over, but we were really quite impressed by him. And as I said, he was a rather unorthodox approach to Saria, where he was complaining about trying to get his phone to work. And probably that conversation would have been more extended, and he might have just, he maybe had a fault with his phone or whatever gadget he's using for communication. And they could have just got into a bit of conversation more naturally as part of that process. It's difficult to kind of role play that when you're talking to yourself, but yeah. Overall, we had a positive meeting with him. We shared a few drinks. We also shared his telephone number, or the equivalent of a telephone in the Traveller universe, his mobile number. We have an invitation to call him later on in the week. So that was a good start. So our characters, I have a bit of a change of heart on the. This came as a result. I launched my RuneQuest first episode, a couple of days ago, and I'm very pleased to say that it has had a fantastic response. There's an awful lot of people have watched it and are very interested in it. But one of the things, that aside, one of the things that I had talked about was my use of my little icons, my little, I don't use figures. I do have figures, but I don't really have them ready to go. And I thought, well, when you're looking at these things, you're looking at kind of top down. So figures, you would just see their heads, really. So, and these, I suppose, these kind of represent things. However, getting back to these things, what I want to do is have a distinctive look for each channel. So on my D&D one, I've got basically a table as the background, and I have these little things, and then I've got my my other little, I've got loads of different color ones of these too. So I'm going to continue that for the D&D one. However, for the Traveller one, I want to have a different looking little pawns. So I'm going to swap this one for Fiora. I'm going to swap this one for not Castellon, Bastion. I'm going to swap this one for Saria, and I'm going to swap this one for Kira. So we're going to have some new ones, and that'll just give it maybe a bit of a more distinctive look. And I've got some more sci-fi type ones as well that I can bring in. If anybody plays the game Pandemic, they'll probably recognise that I've pinched these temporarily from Pandemic. So I'm going to swap them out. And for my RuneQuest one, I'm going to have more Bronze Age looking type counters and pawns, and try to go for the more, the things like gold and bronze and silver. If I can, I've got to try and locate them, or maybe I'll just get some blank ones of these and paint them, or worst comes to worst, I really just use kind of Bronze Age colors, which would probably be things like kind of oranges and reds, and I'll come up with something. Okay, so that being said, and that's kind of like a minor detail, I'm just going to have my own these are my traveler ones now. All the wee traveler guys here. And my D&D ones are going to stay D&D. Okay, so that's that. So we've had our encounter, our first, what I would call my situation. We reach a kind of juncture in our evening. We think, well, let's go back and have a little chat to Hansen, see if he actually knows anything about this chap that we've been talking to. He was quite, we had struck up quite a rapport with Hansen. So we pop back over, we're having a kind of quiet conversation with him. We say, Hansen, do you know that fellow that we were talking to? His name is Wagner Castellan. And he says, oh yes, yes I do. He's in quite regularly. And we say, Hansen, can you tell us anything more about him? And he says, well, yeah, surely I can, but our hotel policy is client confidentiality, so I can't talk about all his details and whatever, but I can say that he is a very popular visitor to this bar. He is a follower of a senator in the Republican Senate, who is quite a firebrand now. His name is Senator Valerius Thorne, and he is a representative of, or the leader of this traditionalist party, who are very anti-technology, and they're almost the extreme form. Wagner is one of his trusted acolytes, and I believe that he likes to talk to off-worlders, and he seems to be there seems to be a kind of general consensus that he's befriending them, or even maybe recruiting them, but the reason he does that is unknown. So we say, well, that is very useful information, Hansen. We will take that forward. Thank you very much. What else is on the drinks menu? And he says, well, I do recommend the Crystal Maze. I think that's a very nice one, maybe for middle of the evening. It helps you unwind. So we say, well, 4 Crystal Mazes. Thank you very much, Hansen. We retire back to our table. So we are at the stage where we can do our next situation. I'll just have a quick glass of water because I've got a bit of frog in my throat. Okay, so remember we had our overall timetable on this little mini game, and we had our little steps that we were following on this matrix, and we just cycle back through to our next situation. So we do 2 formally, and then thereafter we start to roll for any more. Let's generate our next situation. So I'll get my little pad out just to do the high level details. And we'll get to our table. And what we do first is we establish the identity of the person that we're going to meet. So we will get our red dice represents 1 to 3, and black dice 1 to 6. So let's see what we get. So we get a 35. Journalist. Interesting. So we've had a politician and now journalist. So I'll get my little sheet out, which is, remember we have this as a little resumes of the characters. We have identity, journalist. So we'll put that one down here. Okay, and the next thing I like to do is determine the sex of the person. So we'll do 1 to 3, the male, and 4 to 6, they are female. So this one's a female. So, female. Okay, And the next thing, I have this little table for age. And if I can just get that one out, I don't need that anymore. Yeah. Non-player characters, I've got this little table here that I do for age and then experience. So if we roll a red dice for age and well, actually we'll do experience afterwards because age determines how we deal with experience. So let's roll 1d6 for age first and find out how old our journalist is. So our journalist is very young again, a nice young, we're going for all the young situation types just now. So it's in her 20s. Let's find out just exactly what she's like before we decide whether it's low 20s or high 20s. So at 20s, and then that means that we can roll a d6 for experience. If she'd been an age group, higher age group, we would roll 2 d6s and taken the higher. But we just roll 1. So let's see how experienced the journalist she is. Oh, she is very experienced. She's an experienced, skilled journalist. So either she's very, that's amazing that maybe at that age, she's got a skill level of 2 potentially in some of her skills. So she would be classified as experienced. And I'll put skilled. And that's 5 on the table. So she is a bit of a star journalist, certainly at that age. Bit of a rising star. So we really get the creme de la creme of youth on this planet. And now is she now a bit like Wagner? When we're talking about her background, and this is I've usually kind of slanting it in this particular environment to off-worlders, and I would be saying 1 to 5 is an off-worlder and 6 is native. However, she might be a native journalist, so maybe we should do 1 to 4. Maybe even it's 50-50 actually, I think, in this case. So 1 to 3, she is from off-world, and 4 to 6, she's a native journalist. So this would be interesting just to see where she comes from. And I suppose this is the point. I can just modify I don't have these set rules. I have kind of guidelines, really. And I don't have to go follow the script all the time. And if I think it's reasonable for me to make a bit of a modification like I've done there, I'll just go ahead and do it. So that's the trouble is when I start talking like that, I kind of forget exactly what I'm trying to determine on the dice roll. But I think that means that she's a native. Yes. So she is a native because 1 to 3 was off-world. So she is from one of the local press organizations. She is a very skilled operator. The next thing I like to do is determine what her name is. And I've got my little chart to do that. And we can have a bit of fun working out what her name is. So we'll do, the red is the columns and black is the rows. So let's get that going. So we have row 1, column 2. So Chris. Chris is her first name. A female Chris. Nice name. And then her surname. So again, we'll do the column. We'll do, this is a D2 and this is a D6 to get what row we're going to go on first. So that's 2 and 2. So we're on this line here and we'll do what column we're going to go into. And we get the third column, Avant. Chris Avant. Interesting name. Okay, so the big decider now. What's her personality like? And we go to our This is one of the favourite things I like to do. The AT&T one is the personality and the general traits. It always generates a bit of a laugh. So let's get our dice out for this and roll. We get a 41, and a 41 is aggressive, quick to anger and violence. Dear. So I don't know if that's too good a trait for a journalist. Maybe we could use it a bit more, instead of literally, we could use it maybe a bit more metaphorically. Maybe she's a very tenacious journalist and she goes after the story. Maybe that's what it is. So let's see how strong, how aggressive she is. If it's high, we could say she is, maybe she's physically aggressive too. Oh my goodness, she's off the chart. So I'm going to say, in this instance, because, and again, this is the override that you can do in this thing. You can modulate any of these results to your own interpretation. I'm going to say that she is an absolute bloodhound when it comes to the story. She'll do anything to get it. She's so aggressive because quick to anger and violence. Maybe she gets very frustrated if she anything gets in her way, and maybe that's when the anger comes out. So she's really she's very focused and very driven to get the story and make the deadline. And anything that gets in her way, she becomes very almost like she can't control her frustration. It kind of builds up. And I'm not saying she maybe lashes out physically, but with a 6, we're not maybe she can be a wee bit physical at times. Okay, so the creme de la creme, the final piece de la resistance, that will be this thing that I use for my from the Mongoose edition, where we have a quirk. And this is designed to kind of spice up the encounter with it. And we've got this nice little table here. So again, we get the old dice out for this. Let's see where we get quirk-wise. She's got quite a bit of a personality already. I would say that's a 66. Is that going to say it's going to be... Oh my goodness. This is absolutely off the chart. Look at that. Possesses telepathy or unusual quality. Oh my goodness. Isn't that interesting? Telepathy. Right. So, or unusual quality. So, let's do 1 to 3. Maybe 1 to 2 is telepathy, and then 3 to 6 unusual quality. And we have to determine what the unusual quality is. That could be quite interesting. And telepathy is pretty good anyhow. And just think about it. What a talent for, what a thing to have for a journalist. And she doesn't really need to be aggressive. She's going to get the story anyhow. She can just read your mind. Okay, so 1 to 2 telepathy. It is. She's telepathic. Oh my goodness, telepathy. So, and let's find out how strong this is. And I suppose telepathy is a psionic ability. So this means that she has some form of psionic training, or just natural ability that maybe hasn't been focused. And I haven't established what the view to psionics is on tarot. The view in the Imperium about psionics is I'm going to follow the guidelines of the Third Imperium and say that the psionics are viewed with distrust, and quite often they are a shunned group. They are ostracized from society. There's a lot of suspicion about them. They really have to act underground, and that tends to be the consensus across the Imperium. When it comes to the worlds outside, they can have their own view on the psionics. Some will actually nurture them. I'm not going to say that I've got a Zidani consulate, a full-blown, superpower that is psionic. But there are states, probably individual planets, or maybe it's small federations where psionics are either, there's a much more liberal policy to psionics. I would say on tarot, just on as a kind of shooting from the hip, that they are probably a bit of a downer on psionics, because it just seems something that is unknown and maybe subversive. And it's probably something that would be accused of that the free group, our faction that's all into just hedonistic lifestyle and getting your robots to do everything. And maybe they're being, maybe they'd be kind of accused of that psionic nonsense that all this reading of minds and stuff is just magic. So I think in a nutshell, I don't know the answer just now on tarot. I would say it probably has a bit of a similar policy to the Imperium. If she became public, she could be in trouble. So she probably suppresses the information about the telepathy to keep as part of her kit bag of journalistic tools. And maybe this is one of the reasons why she seems so effective, and she's been able to become so skilled. She's been given all the juicy assignments, and she's learned a lot on the job because of her ability to read the minds of the people that she is interviewing. Okay, well, I think I don't think you can get probably a bit more quirky a result than that. So we've really got quite an interesting character there. We've got our journalist, and I would say that just over the piece, we've generated some these two NPCs. They are probably going to be featuring in our adventures quite heavily, I would think, because they just aren't. They're nice ones to. If I had a campaign, I'd probably wanted to use them quite a bit. Okay, but we're with Chris just now, Chris Avant. She is a journalist. The next thing we do is we do our trigger to see exactly how this situation developed in the first place, and how our characters bumped into Chris. Now I just need to find exactly what I have done with my little. Oh, is that it there? Resident side. Oh, here we go. It's just underneath. So determine the trigger that initiates the encounter, and that's where I have my D12 to do this. So we'll get our D12. Let's find out. Red dice in there. Let's find out what caused our situation, our encounter with Chris Avant. We have a 10. So 10 means guest behaves suspiciously, drawing attention of the PCs. Maybe carrying a suspicious item or acting in a secretive manner. Okay. So, right. Let's see. So, guest behaves suspiciously, drawing attention of the PCs. So, Chris must be in the bar area. Maybe she is furtively moving around, maybe scanning the area just to see who she wants to. Maybe she's got either a rendezvous with someone. She wants to, someone that's to do with a story, or it's a contact, and she's maybe got to do it rather surreptitiously, and with the training, I suppose, of the characters with their heightened senses and their military backgrounds and whatever, maybe they just think, oh, this looks a bit odd, and then maybe carrying a suspicious item or acting in a secretive manner. So maybe she has got some form of dossier or something that she's bringing, and she wants it validated, and maybe, or acting in a secretive manner. So there could be a host of different things. When you think of the journalistic background and just the location that she's in, is there something clandestine going on, or is it just part of her job? Okay, let's do 1 to 3 as she's carrying a suspicious item, and then a 4 to 6 she's acting in a secretive manner. So let's do that. So she's acting secretly, in a secretive manner. Okay. Right. So if she's acting secretly, maybe we could have her kind of skulking around a wee bit, and as if she's trying to find someone in the bar area, and she's not even going up to Hanson and asking. She's almost like she's trying to see if she can spot someone, and then maybe as if she was wanting to observe them. So I'm just going to roll randomly and see which one of our characters decide. They're just going to go up and maybe just say, "Can I help you?" or something like that, or "Are you looking for someone?" You know, that maybe try that approach and just see what happens. So we'll have our little characters out. We've got that's Bastian. We've got Kira. We've got Saria, and we have got Fiora. So we'll do. I was going to do a D4, unfortunately. Let's do this D6 and ignore the 5 and 6 and re-roll. So let's see what we get. So we get number 1, Kira. So maybe Kira's not the one to go. But we've got to try it. So you know, Kira's got kind of maybe a bit of Dutch courage because she's had a few, and you know, maybe she's used to this type of situation. And maybe her spider senses have been going, you know, all that kind of background on that off planet with those apex predators. She gets that tingle when she sees what she thinks is a predator, and she can sense it. And maybe the hairs on the back of her neck are starting to come up. So I'm going to have I'll have my reporter. I'll have Chris. She's in one of the booths, just sort of maybe just scanning around, and Kira just sort of comes across and goes, "Oh, hello. You look as though you're a bit lost. Any reason why you're here?" And Chris kind of gives a bit of a scowl, and amazingly, she does seem to know. Seem to know exactly what Kira's what intention is, and he says, "Oh, so you think I'm acting a bit suspiciously or something, do you?" In a kind of bit of an aggressive manner, and Kira's kind of a bit on the back foot, and she said, "I didn't really mean it that way. Why don't you come over and have a chat? You know, we're really trying to make some contacts in this place." Why don't you come over and I'll introduce you to my party, and you can tell us what you know about, and maybe we can help you find who you're looking for. And she said, well, I suppose, where did you all from? And so we kind of swap pleasantries and information. And we do seem to kind of discern that she is a reporter, and she works for the major press outlet called the Herald, which is the flagship newspaper, or what I suppose you would call vid paper, on the planet. And she's almost like she says she's not boastful, but she says I'm kind of like the top reporter. I've been given assignments, and you know I've got these accolades and blah 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 blah. And we established that she is a very experienced operator, and she's got quite a lot of track record. And she does, over the course of the conversation, she's willing to maybe say, well, you know, I came in here because and if we get I think a positive reaction, I think she might be able to give out a bit more information about why she's here and who she's looking for, and maybe she's got a kind of story and an angle on that person. So this is where we can actually go with the social interaction mechanic. I will get my sheet out. Now, the real trouble I am having is organising my notes so that they are to hand and I can see exactly where, and I'm trying to find my little table that has got the interaction on it. Here we go. Social encounters. So when we were doing the previous ones, we were establishing what all the different parameters were and what modifiers I needed to do. So I would say, we've already established we don't have the liaison or streetwise skill. The social standing, I don't think will be an issue because she doesn't look as though she's high class or even like lower class. Other reaction modifiers based on population and military experience, that is a no-no. NPC personality to vary depending on type of trait and its level. So we know that she is aggressive, and we've taken that to be that she's quite tenacious, going after a story, and if she can't get her way, she maybe becomes quite aggressive, verbally and maybe even physically. So I would say that that is probably a bit of a negative, but in the case of a social interaction, it's either going to be neutral, or it could even be potentially, say she's after something and she's tenacious. She might be wanting, maybe she wants to get information from us about this particular person that she's looking for, and maybe she's been here a long time, and it's only now that we're trying to notice it, and we're thinking, oh, who had we met before? Of course it was Wagner Castellon. Maybe she's here to see what he's up to. So I think in that case, the only trouble is that Chris, who is a telepath, can understand everything that our characters are thinking. So, we're all sitting here maybe with little thoughts to ourselves, but it's all being shared with. Haven't really established how strong her telepathy is. Maybe it's just very high level, and she can't really discern too much. Or maybe she can actually, if she really put her mind to it, she can probe into our deepermost secrets. I don't think it probably is that level. I think she shows a lot more kind of perception and intuition when it comes to us. The fact that she almost felt, Kira almost felt that she read her mind. It's probably she gives that kind of vibe over all the time, and she's kind of almost thinking, finishing people's sentences and that type of stuff. So I think, in a sort of long-winded way, I will give a positive. The fact that she wants information from us, and we want information from her, so she's quite responsive to that. So I'll give a +1 to that. And also, I think on us, we're quite keen to find out a bit more about what she's up to and whatever. So we'll get a +2. So we've got a +2 that we're going to do to this. So as I say, in a long-winded way, I got there. Let's roll the reaction dice and see what she thinks of the situation. And she was about to open up and tell us who this person was that she was trying to follow or find. And we're getting a bit more information about her. So 4 + 2 is a 6. So it's neutral. Treats characters like everyone else, not responsive. So she's not going to give any information away, and we're not going to find out. So that's maybe a wee bit disappointing. I suppose as a solo role player, the picture that I was trying to build up was that she was quite interested in Wagner Castellon, and she is doing a story, a background story on Wagner. As a sort of deep cover story about his movements and his going-ons and his dealings with offworlders. It is being brought to her attention, and the Herald and her editor has said this to her and said, go get this story. That Wagner Castellon is who is a bit of a rising star in the Senate. He has been doing a lot of different kind of conversation. He's been hanging around the Dragon Hotel more than you would expect. What's the reason behind that? He keeps talking to offworlders, what's happening. So she's following that story. However, she doesn't feel that she can confide in the characters. So I do have my little breakdown of what all the different reaction results mean. Right, here it is. I've got it. I've found it. So it is a neutral reaction. Now that would usually mean so the top level reaction has said that we are not responsive, and we're treating characters like everyone else. And the detailed one I've got is enigmatic, unreadable, distant, businesslike, unconcerned, unimpressed, lukewarm, offhand, unresponsive. So I quite like enigmatic. It's like she's a bit unreadable. We don't really quite know what she's talking. She seemed to get to the point where she was going to give a bit more information about what she was trying to do. I think it's maybe worthwhile investing a bit more time in Chris, and just seeing whether we can just get a bit more rapport with her. So we'll take Fiora's lead, and she is used to dealing in these sort of circumstances, and a kind of a social situation like this, and she kind of takes charge, and she says, "Okay, Chris, we're going to be here for quite some time. You fancy another drink or something, and maybe we can talk about a few other things, and and see whether we can get to know the five of us a bit better." We're already kind of just setting out on our journey and finding out things, and we've got some very interesting stories that we've from our service careers and whatever, anything that might interest your paper and stuff like that. And Chris seems to sort of be quite responsive to that, and she thinks, oh, well, these people might be quite interesting. They've got a bit of background, they're off-worlders, and also we do mention the fact that we have already been speaking to this chap Wagner Castellan, and she does seem to be quite interested, just exactly what we've been talking about, and that we almost feel that she starts to get kind of almost like pick up on that particular vibe. So let's revisit the role again with the +2, and see if it's higher. She is going to go more positively with it, and if it's less, end of story. She's probably just going to say, "Yeah, I'm just going to have a bit of a rain check tonight. I think I'll just call it a day." So let's roll and just see what happens. So we get a 7 plus a 2. That's a 9. So a 9 is going to be positive, I think, on our little thing. Yep, positive. Finds common interest, shows favour. So I think we've got past that bit of an impasse. Maybe there was a bit of misunderstanding at the start, and she felt that she just maybe needed to hold back a bit. So she says, I'm actually here. I'm doing a story on this chap called Wagner Castellan, and we say, oh, we've just met him, and he was talking to us. He seemed a very nice chap. He was very, very eloquent and well spoken. He came across as being very, very, very straight and honest, kind of. And she said, yes, he's a very skilled politician. He is known for his charm and his ability to speak to the people, and he's a great communicator. However, I'm doing a story on just his bit of a backstory on him, and I'm interested to find out what he is talking to people about. And he'd been speaking to you about a few things, and we say, yeah, we've been talking about what our experiences are off world, and he's been quite interested in that. He says he wants to pick up what opinion is on all the different planets round about, and what the Imperium, and the fact that the political situation on Taro. And she says, "Oh, yeah, okay." We say that he left his contact details, and we're to give him a contact later on. And she said, "Oh, right, okay." So she does seem very interested in that. And she says, "Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I've got a few other things I've got to do this evening, but I'm going to leave you my contact details, and I'd quite like you to maybe get in contact with me." If anything else happens on the Wagner front, and speak to me about it, because, as I say, I'm quite interested in doing a bit of a profile on him. I'm kind of like, a bit of a kind of story, the rising star in the Senate, and that type of thing. And I'm very interested to get in behind his thing. He's a bit of a private individual when it comes to the press, and he's a bit defensive. So, I would have had a straight interview with him, but he's been a bit kind of reluctant to do that. So I'm kind of having to do kind of almost through third parties. And we say, okay, right, that's fine. So end of that situation, I think Chris says, bids us good evening. She said, I've really had a lovely time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheerio. So she disappears. We feel very good. We've had quite a lot to drink by now, particularly Kira. And she says, yeah, she seemed like a nice lady. It's very, very bright. And my goodness, didn't she almost like she can read your mind. Isn't that amazing? And I said, yeah, maybe that's just the drink talking, Kira. Okay, so we have done situation 2. If we recycle back to our original timetable, we've got resolve our interactions. After 2 situations, roll a d6 and perform another on a 3 to 6, reducing by 1 thereafter. So if we roll a 3 to 6, we will have another situation. And I think based on the time that I'm going, I'm just going to have to check what the time is. We might have to just push that into the next one. I was hoping to get all the situations done, and then I could have actually gone on to explaining what are the next steps in the campaign. I might do that if say we do have a situation. I might just have a quick pause in between and do the explanation on that before we actually resolve the next situation. But let's see if we have one first. It might not be necessary to do that little interruption. So a 3 to 6, we have another situation. So we do. So we're going to have another situation. So what I plan to do is maybe just give you a bit of a lowdown on the next steps on the campaign. Yes, we can. The first thing I'll do, I'll just recycle back to our overall campaign outline, and that does have the little timetable that we had on the overall campaign, and I had the little checklist that I was following. Where is it? So this will teach me to find all the relevant information. Sorry, it was driving me nuts. I couldn't find. I had to pause the thing. This is what I was trying to find. Campaign development, and just as a quick recap, create the characters with a party randomly generated. Tick. Generate the starting world where the characters meet and begin their adventures. Tick. Place the characters in the starport and begin with them searching for a patron and employment. For the first adventure, have a patron and a mission seeded into the game after 3 days if no patron has been contacted by then. So we're in this kind of in-between phase where I've got this little mini game to get our characters introduced to the world. We've already had 2 interesting NPCs. We've had some of the staff in the Dragon Hotel introduced to us. That's a kind of staging point to this phase 3, where I'm going to have them actually looking for employment, patron, and I have a whole process which is based almost entirely on the Traveller process, because in Traveller there is an automated process on these sheets here where we can find patrons. There are determinations of patrons and who you find. There's patron list 1 and patron list 2, and it's based on a kind of daily random roll based on your trying to find a patron. And there's also rumors and how they're generated, and then when we go out and actually do things, there's legal there's a chance that you have any illegal encounter, so that's with the local law enforcement, and also some random encounters if we're actually, say, in an urban area. So what I've done is I've kind of refined this a bit. I've taken basically all this information and I've put it into a more organized and maybe solo friendly kind of format. And that's what I'm really going to just give you a high level indication of just now. And then for the next video, we'll get into a bit more detail once we've done that final situation. For adventuring, I'm saying that during the time spent on a planet, the characters will either be looking for a patron and potential employment or adventuring. So I've got these two activities, major activities, that I've divided the characters' kind of basic life into, which is looking for a patron, or what I call adventuring, which is the catch-all for everything else. So looking for patrons involves frequenting bars, taverns, clubs, and the hotel. It can involve travel out of the starport and into an urban area adjacent. And I have some tables that determine exactly what type of looking for patron involves and what it looks like. And then on the adventuring covers going about business and engaging agencies and individuals in the course of achieving objectives, and thus involves routine encounters with officials, staff, etc. And again, that is basically anything else that isn't involving trying to find a patron. So it could be ongoing adventures that we're on, and just the fact that we're out, say, out in the either in the starport or in the urban area, or we've gone beyond the urban area, or we're adventuring in the wilderness, that type of thing. During these activities, roll for various actions and events. This is determined per day spent in an activity. So I have the two activities divided onto this matrix, and every day that if we're looking for a patron, I'll have a patron check, which is a 6 on a d6, and a rumor check, 6 on a d6. And also, while I'm doing that, I'll roll on what I call the patron searching table. But at the same time, there is a chance that we have an encounter, and I'll roll an encounter roll, depending where that patron searching table tells me the encounter should be. And on the patron searching table, I have got 6 different options. And you might recall when Clement was talking about the methods of seeking a patron, I basically summarized this list. And this is all the different types of things that we do. So what I'll do next episode is I'll go into a bit more detail and show you exactly what they are. But just as a headline, 1 would be explore the starport and all the different things that you could do there. 2 would be head into the urban area and seek out all the kind of local stuff. 3 would be restrict the search to the Dragon Hotel. So a bit like what we were doing just now, is kind of networking in the hotel. 4 would be go into the urban area and take in some of the local stuff, and also maybe visit government buildings, some of the cultural places, art centres, that type of stuff. 5 would be the venture into the less reputable parts of the urban area, which is the bit that Clement said, I don't advise you to do that, but I've got to tell you. And then 6, the starport facilities, actually the Imperium Starport Authority, which might need some kind of specialist contractor type stuff to do the things. So that's what I'm going to talk about next time. And as I say, I've got a bit of process and some kind of organized steps to govern that, because I felt the traveler rules are great as a kind of giving you the kind of almost like getting you into a position where you can solo, but you've got to take it a bit of a step further to build a kind of almost like a framework. And this what I call game infrastructure is my overall framework that I have to run my game. So this will be like the engine, the kind of control, the kind of starship, bridge. I'll have what I call my game infrastructure, where I have an overall matrix to act as the campaign calendar system. And it's a much more than a calendar system, as you'll see. This will administer adventure points from the world creation. So remember all those adventure points that we generated when we were talking about tarot. I'll suck them and put them onto this this matrix. have mechanisms to how they can be introduced into the campaign. So I'll have them all listed, and then I'll have mechanisms to get how they feature in the campaign, if they ever do. I'll have a system to track any patrons and missions that we generate through this process. I'll be able to run the rumors and introduce them into the setting. So again, I've got a mechanism to do that. I've got the ability to control random events in the background mechanic. So that was a bit when I was talking about at the start of this series, where I want to bring in some of the more geopolitical and macro things about the overall setting. So things about the Imperium and maybe some of its history, and the fact that it's got some of the things that might impinge on the actual local setting from the wider universe. So I've got this kind of mechanic to how to manage that, and how we kind of drip feed information into the setting. And then I maintain an NPC bank, so I'm already got quite a rich stocking of that already. I'll have these two new characters, and then I've got my original 3 major NPCs that we generated during the tarot world building sessions, and then basically track time and timeline, so what the characters are doing. And with this, I think I've got more of a flexible time thing. I'm always doing a day-to-day thing in my AD&D game. I think with the Traveller one, it's probably going to be more week to week, and basically have activities. So I've got quite an abstract system for the patron searching, which is basically saying, well, actually you just spend the day in the starport, or you spend the day in the urban zone, but I'm not very specific about exactly where you go. I'm not saying you go down that street and whatever. However, when it comes to if I generate an encounter, I have got a mechanism. I keep talking about these mechanisms, but I have a way of making it quite specific, and almost like having a little, almost like view it as a bit of a film set, and I can create a little kind of scene of that takes us from the abstract down to the tangible. So I can create a little scene to stage that encounter. Okay, I think I've probably dazzled you with enough science. Hopefully it's tantalized you a bit that there's a lot still to do. There's plenty. We haven't even started adventuring. The next thing we're going to do is trying to find a patron after we've had this situation. This might not be the last situation of the night. Maybe we'll meet someone else that's just as interesting as the last 2 that we've had. Boy, they've really shown you just what you can create on these random tables, and with a bit of kind of inference and interpretation, you can generate a little story. It's quite an effort. You really have to draw on the kind of creative juices, but yeah, it's worth it if you can get a nice little result. So I've quite enjoyed that, and hopefully you have too. So I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching.